you. There you go.
That was like that.
Good morning, San Miguel County.
Must be Mike. Mike.
We're blaming you. We're blaming you for everything too.
Okay, now we're good.
Good morning, San Miguel County. I'm calling to order a regular meeting for the Board of County Commissioners. In the room are Commissioner Brown and myself, Commissioner Gleason. Right now, we're going to take a moment of silence for grounding and gratitude. Thank you. We are lucky to be here. Okay, at this point, we will review the agenda. Commissioner Brown, do you have any changes you would like to make or suggest?
No, ma'am, it looks great to me.
Okay, we have one item, item 12A, consideration by the Board of County Commissioners, a recommendation to deny the petition of abatement or refund of taxes for Robert N. and Claudine E. Posey. That particular item has been pulled from the, suggested to be pulled from the agenda. So we will pull item 12A. Everything else looks good as scheduled. Okay, moving on to item 5, public comment for items not on the agenda. There are no public in the room. However, I've noticed we have at least one member of public on the Zoom. So at this point, if you are interested in making public comment for items not on the agenda, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, no takers there. So we will move on to the consent agenda. Item 6A, approval of minutes for our July 1st and July 8th meetings. And item 6B, approval of the purchase of 2 Chevy pickup trucks for the Road and Bridge Department. And item 6C, ratification of the Commissioner's signature on a letter of support for Public Lands Workforce Stability Act.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Moving right along to administrative matters. I notice we have Derek Padilla from Tres Rios BLM field office online. So we will move on to item 7A to get an update from Mr. Padilla. Good morning, Derek.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourselves?
We're good, thanks.
Good, good. Yeah, so I'll just start off with the Ferris fire. It definitely, impacted some of San Miguel County constituents north of the county line there as far as evacuations and things of that sort for a short time period. Fortunately, no San Miguel property owners or San Miguel County land was impacted directly by fire. We did have some contingency lines that were put in the event that the fire did come out of the canyon and make a run to the north. But again, fortunately, that didn't happen. All rehab, associated with that line construction has been completed as a couple of days ago. We currently have an emergency stabilization and burned area rehabilitation team here doing an assessment of areas that were impacted by the fire, in which they'll provide recommendations, to lessen the impacts from the fire, be it erosion, infrastructure that may have been damaged. We had a few fence lines and things like that were impacted by the fire. This assessment is required in order for us to be able to get funding to support, those longer term rehabilitation efforts. So that's ongoing. They should be finished up by Friday. And then after that, we'll begin the process of implementing, any of their recommendations over the course of the next year to 5 years, just depending on what those recommendations are and how long they take. See, it was great working with Sheriff Cobalt and the emergency management folks. They did a great job in coordination with the incident management teams and with the different agencies. Yes, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Derek. Are there any concerns about that funding for rehabilitation? Or is once the assessment is made and the recommendations, we can assume that that money will be allocated?
Not necessarily. They are competitive, so they'll be weighed against, the values at risk that are associated with those recommendations, and then, we'll be competing against the rest of the nation, basically, for the longer term dollars. That's the burned area rehabilitation dollars, so BAR. That's the funding that's more competitive. The emergency stabilization dollars, the ES funding, that one is not competitive. And if they identify things on that list, those basically just get charged to the incident cost, basically. But there aren't too many of those, thankfully. But the BAR funding, that longer term stuff, there again, that'll be a competitive effort. But we're not seeing that that there was actually, a lot of significant impact from the fire. Upon their review, of the impacts down on the ground and the effects, other than, a few isolated areas, the severity of the burn wasn't as bad as it could have been. But having said that, there are areas, throughout the landscape that did, burn with high severity. Unfortunately, a lot of those are on pretty steep slopes where there's really not a lot of opportunity to do anything about it. We just need to let nature take its course, and all of that is mostly within the Dolores River Canyon. But we did have some areas like out at Bradfield Campground, if anybody's familiar with that location, where we've already experienced, some pretty significant rains, and then with that, some debris and sediment flow. So they're developing recommendations on how to lessen the impact to the campground, if we continue to receive additional moisture there in the area. And then over at the Dolores Overlook area, there again, there were some spots there that burnt with high severity. And they're developing recommendations on things that we may be able to do there to ensure that we don't have any more impact than what's already occurred.
And does the funding come from FEMA or within the BLM?
It comes within the Department of Interior. Yeah, it's not FEMA related.
Makes sense. Thank you very much.
Quick question as well on the fire front. I noticed that there was a new fire that recently started near Cajon. Could you give us just a brief update on that and
Sure. Yeah. So that was the Cross Canyon fire. That got to about 140 acres. Fortunately, we were able to catch it within the first 48 hours. Yesterday, they called it 100% contained. And yeah, so we are going to continue for the next week or so. They're forecasting hot, dry weather. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, with that moisture that we received, we also received a lot of lightning. So it's not going to be, unreasonable to think that we won't, have some layovers, with these because they got moisture on them. They're smoldering that, but not enough for anybody to detect them until they dry out just enough that they start moving again. And that's kind of what happened with that fire out at Cross Canyon. The week before that, we had another one out there in that same area called McLeod. That one got about to 120 acres. And then previous to that, there was another one called the Alkali out in that same country. I think that one got to like 60 acres or so. So we'll continue to see these, but fortunately, there's enough moisture out there that once the evening hits, the fire activity decreases quite a bit as far as behavior, and we're able to catch them. And I'm hoping that's going to continue until we start getting rain again, which is in the forecast for next week. So hopefully it comes, and it's unfortunate that some places that we don't need a lot of rain right now seem to be the areas that are getting a lot of rain, and the areas that we don't need a lot of rain is where we need to get it, and we're not getting as much there. But we'll take whatever we can get. I was speaking with a landowner the other day, and that was impacted by the Ferris fire, and I made that comment that I just wish that we didn't get so much rain all at once in some of these places. And she says, "Oh, you bite your tongue. You never say we shouldn't be getting any rain, no matter where it's at." So oh, you're right. You're right.
Another question, I can't remember if I asked this of you or Megan, at the Forest Service, but we had a preliminary conversation about the new organization of wildland firefighting, where they've consolidated it at the federal public lands level. I forget what it's called. And the initial thought, I think it was from you, was that things really hadn't changed much on the ground. Same people kind of, cooperating in a similar manner to previous. And I just wonder if you still had that impression after the Ferris fire. If that
Yes.
is you who said that.
Yeah, it was me. Yes, when we were over there in
Egner.
Egner. There you go.
Yes,
I was
that's
gonna say
it.
I was gonna say Nucla, and I was gonna say that it wasn't Nucla. But
Yeah.
at any rate,
Yeah.
I still hold the impression, as far as boots on the ground. Nothing has changed. We still have all the same firefighting resources, and things have worked well. As far as utilization of those resources for all the different incidents that we've had. Where there has been a change is in my role and the role of the Wildland Fire Service unit deputy fire chief. They've assumed a lot more of the responsibilities that used to be mine, and I didn't think there was going to be a big difference, but I did notice that there was some difference, and I think it had more to do with just everybody understanding and learning their new roles, and because of that, needing to be a little more communicative and collaborative with each other. Fortunately, our deputy unit fire chief down here, his name is Richard Gustafson. I've worked with him for a few years now, so we have a really good working relationship, and I didn't see a big impact when there were things that were normally prior to the transition, my responsibilities, that were being asked of him now, because he has those responsibilities. He made the extra effort to ensure, that I was being incorporated into those discussion and things like that. I have heard, in other areas where those relationships, haven't been developed yet, it wasn't a matter of, the Wildland Fire Service person thinking that, well, this is my role and my job and I'm in charge here. It was just, a matter of them not understanding, what the role of the line officer is and how to, integrate with the land management agency side of the house. So when they were asked a question, they just provided an answer, instead of coordinating with the land management agency to ensure that that was the right answer. But we didn't have that issue here at all because there again, Richard and I have known each other for quite a while, and we're at a point where he knew when, it was a land management agency directed question that should be directed to the land management agency versus Wildland Fire Service. So, there's going to be a few bumps in the road, as we make this transition, but I think by next year we'll have it, pretty well smoothed out.
Great. Thanks for that update and explanation, and certainly Mr. Gustafson is getting tested with all this fire activity for sure.
Right.
I see Mr. Tooley has his hand up, but I'd like you to continue with your updates, and then I will make space for Mr. Tooley to ask his question near the end of your presentation. If that sounds good.
Okay. Sure. And then if there are no more questions on the fire stuff, I was going to move on to our abandoned mine land projects. I provided a map. I don't know if you all have it. So we have about 24 sites in total, that we're looking at doing some remediation and then, public safety, address some public safety concerns as far as placing, covers on open adits and things like that, so people don't fall in. And those are throughout the county, all those little green dots that you'll see on that map that has been provided. Yeah, and these are all, related to the Department of Energy Defense-Related Uranium Mine Program mines that were developed, back in the 30s and 40s, all the way up through the 70s, I believe. So we continue to work on that, until, we address, all of those safety concerns out there. Are there any questions on that?
No questions, but it's really interesting to see this map and make correlations with where those are.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a question if you could give us just a quick update on the Sunday Mine Complex and operations there.
Sure. So things are still, according to the latest information we had, I think I reported there at Egner, that they weren't actively mining, that they weren't hauling any material out of that area. And that's still the case as far as we understand.
Great. And then this is out of the county, but I did catch wind that there are maybe pre-applications in for uranium mill in Paradox Valley to reopen that uranium mill. I was hoping you could update us if you have any information on that permit timeline and process in Montrose County.
I do not. That's most likely on the Uncompahgre field office area, because I'm not aware of that. So,
okay, you're right. That is in the Uncompahgre field office. All right. Well, thanks. We'll have to ask them.
Alina, is
Yes.
that a reopening of a mill or I didn't realize it had been built.
It would be, I mean, as I understand it, they would need to rebuild a large portion of it, but it was utilized as a uranium mill back in the 60s. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, not to digress, Mr. Padilla, please keep
all right.
on.
And then the last topic is just we're in the process of doing range grazing permit renewals on let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different grazing permits up in the upper Disappointment Creek area. Those would be for the McKenna Peak grazing allotment, the Nash Cemetery grazing allotment, the Rincon allotment, South Mountain allotment and then the Warden Draw allotment. So we've done land health assessments on all those. So we're moving forward with doing what's called a fully processed permit, which requires that you have a land health assessment in place and demonstrates that the allotments being evaluated are moving towards desired conditions. So that is on our e-planning website if anybody is interested in getting into the details. And that is all.
Great. We did submit comments on the new grazing rules proposition.
Mhm.
And I'm not clear on when the decision will be made on those new grazing rules. Could you, oh, Star has her hand up. I'm going to defer to Star on this topic. Star, can you weigh in?
Um, that wasn't the question I was going to ask, but
Oh.
that is a good question. But I did want to ask if you had enough staff to do those land health assessments.
Yes, they're already complete.
Okay. I know that some offices lack staff to do those assessments.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate in our range, wildlife, well, and up until recently, our hydrology program areas, we were fully staffed. We did recently lose our hydrologist, but we were able to get those done prior to his departure.
And then Galena was asking about the rulemaking for the grazing, if you've
Yeah, so I believe the comment period was over at the end of July on that, if I remember correctly. And then it will just depend on how many, comments they received and how long it will take to address those comments, as far as when the rule made final. So it could be anywhere from, I would say 30 to 90 days past, or 30 to 60, excuse me, 60 to 90 days beyond the end of the comment period when the final rule may be ready. But if there are significant comments that are going to take more time to address and analyze, it could go even longer than that.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, do you have anything else, Derek?
I do not, unless there's any questions on anything I haven't covered.
All right, well, I'm going to defer. Oh, Ryan from Road and Bridge has his hand raised, and then Mr. Tooley will get to your questions and comments.
Hello, Derek. So I had a couple questions for you, and then I also a comment for you. This is Ryan with Road and Bridge. One, when you guys are doing the grazing leases, just let anybody, if you guys have new leasees or if you guys even have older ones, any of the county roads that have cattle guards that are associated with those, if they have any questions, they can just reach straight out to us, and we'll
Okay.
coordinate someone to go out there and look at them, make sure that the cattle guards are functioning properly. If there's any repairs or cleaning that we need to do, we can schedule that work to get that done. And so
Okay, appreciate that.
pass that along. And then for the DRMS, I don't know if you guys are working with DRMS on a lot of those, because DRMS had reached out for some of those mines to close some of those portals, and
Mhm.
we're working with them and on the permitting or anything we have to do from our side to help expedite that. And and then your right of way specialist, I was just curious if you had anybody in to fill that position, because we have those two right of ways, one for T11 and then also the one for the well out there at Indian Springs. So those are just two items that I just we have
Right.
want to follow up on.
So we do have somebody helping us out part-time. So she's, working through the list basically of all the different, I think I've reported at this meeting a time or two, that we had like over 100, pending applications, and your all's stuff is in that list as well, so
Perfect.
she's working down them.
Okay, nope, yeah. If they have any questions, they'll just tell them reach out.
Okay, we'll
That was
do.
it. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, Mr. Tooley, the floor is yours. 3 minutes, please.
Hello. So I was just checking the Southwest District BLM map for the field office boundaries.
Mhm.
So I've got two quick questions in regards to that. It looks like the Tres Rios boundary is just to the west of the National Forest land, more or less. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
that's the Dolores River. Um, and then also I see that the Southwest District office, which shares the location in Montrose with the Uncompahgre office, which is the rest of San Miguel County, um, has a vacancy. I was just wondering if you knew anything about that process.
Has a vacancy for the
According to
district manager.
for the district manager, yes, according to the website.
Yeah, that is correct. That position is vacant. Our previous district manager retired. That would have been like in when did she retire? I think it was like February, March of this year. And then we currently have an acting district manager who's normally our deputy district manager, Robert Potts. And at this point in time, they've been pretty selective government-wide about what positions, they're moving forward with filling. Have been recently granted the authority to fill several energy program related positions. One petroleum engineering technician out of our Durango office, and a land law examiner position out of our Durango office as well. I don't think the Montrose area received any positions in this first phase. And then there'll be two more phases where we'll be allowed to fill some additional positions, but I haven't been told, what positions exactly those will be.
The district office manager is selected by a political appointee, or
No, that would be, well, I take that back. The director of the BLM is a political appointee, and they would, have influence over that. But it would be our state director who would be the ultimate, hiring manager for that position, who is currently also somebody who's in an acting position. His name is Tom Heinlein. And normally he's our director for National Conservation Lands at the headquarters office, but he's doing a detail into the state director role at this point in time.
so the resolution of the map that I'm looking at on the web for those field office boundaries, is that clear? I don't know if you could characterize that simply or not.
Sure. So
For the eastern
for the
boundary.
Tres Rios field office, our west boundary is the Utah Colorado border. We go east all the way to Pagosa, Colorado. That's our eastern boundary. Our southern boundary is the New Mexico Colorado boundary, and then we go north about, it's the county, pretty much the San Miguel Montrose County line, although there's a little piece of Montrose County that's within our field office as well.
The map I'm looking at has an eastern boundary in San Miguel County. It's not all of San Miguel County.
Well,
According to the map
I'm just using Pagosa as, it goes north all the way up to Nucla, up in that area.
It looks like it's farther west than Nucla, where that actual
Well,
boundary.
it's just right above Nucla there. Yeah, I can send you a more detailed map if that's what you're looking for. Is there a reason for your question, or
No,
just to
well,
get
I'm
an
just
understanding?
curious. I
Oh,
drove by the Caddis Flats camping area last night, which is out of
yeah,
your
that's
district.
not in my field office.
And it was totally empty. They just did the transition to fee, and they put some new spots in the
Okay.
totally empty at 5 o'clock yesterday. Not a soul, including
Yeah, it's
those.
not uncommon, just due to the temperatures for the lower elevations. Most people are camping up in the
Going high,
in the
yeah.
forest, exactly. And
As am
we
I.
actually, we see a pretty significant decrease in use of our campgrounds, starting about May through end of August. And then once hunting season starts, then, September through April, we see a pretty significant uptick in use of our facilities on the BLM lands.
Fantastic. And just for the commissioner's benefit, I was the discoverer of a significant one of those abandoned mines. Is it U-29 Road at that viewpoint right over the entrance to the Slick Rock Canyon? I think that was before both Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Gleason came on.
Great, thanks for that tidbit, Mr. Tooley.
It's a good viewpoint and it's a dangerous spot, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks as always for your input. You're always so engaged. Thank you. And Derek, thanks for all this updated information and for all your work out there. I know it's been a very busy season for you so far, so hang in there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for visiting with us today.
You're welcome. All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So our next agenda item is we are going to have an introduction to our new Deputy District Attorney, John Clothier. I don't see him on the Zoom or in the room yet, so we'll wait a couple of minutes here and wait for John to tune in.
You may have his phone number, I do.
He was in a meeting, but I haven't got an email yet from him. So do we want to do manager matters? A little update?
Yeah, are you primed for that, Mr. Bordonia?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. And let me shall I text Jonathan or
I'm doing
No.
that right now, Mike.
you are? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
Thanks.
Very good. Good afternoon, or good morning, commissioners. It's afternoon where I am. So last week I had the pleasure of getting to speak at the CCCMA conference to all the new emerging city and county managers in the state on a panel, ironically with former Montrose County Manager John Washbush, who is now their parks director, and a lot less stressed and happy. But anyway, thanks for allowing me that time. We did not have an SMRHA board meeting yesterday. Monday, there were so few items on the agenda that has been shifted to September. Tomorrow, Commissioner Gleason, I believe, and I will be online to talk with representatives of CDPHE in the southern counties about the Enterprise Pipeline spill and what actions the operator are taking to prevent such future spills. As of now, our work session next Wednesday does not have any agenda items on it. I know Commissioner Waring may be absent, and I'm curious if you'd like to cancel that meeting or if you want to keep it on the books for now and see if there's any additional agenda items. Do you have a preference, commissioners?
As of now, I'm okay to keep it on the books and see if anything pops up, just to be able to move through any work. But maybe we touch in on Friday about that and make the call then.
That'd be great.
That's fine with me as well.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you. I wanted to clarify in the memo for the 2 pickup truck purchases under consent agenda. It did correctly specify the 2 Chevy Silverado pickups that will be replacing existing fleet vehicles, but there was a note in there that it was also to purchase a Ford F-550, and I wanted to make everybody know that that is not the case. That may have been a remnant from a template that they had previously used. And some folks were asking, are these our 2 new EV pickup trucks? And they are not. Those will be separately received from the grant that STAR got for the county in October. So we're anticipating an October arrival, and we will be allocating them, I believe, to building and to road and bridge. Black Bear Pass that had some closures from rock slides is confirmed that it is clear and open. So thank you to our road and bridge staff for getting that reopened. And then Uray County, this is old news now, but has reopened their side of Imogene Pass. So all of our high country passes are open and passable. We noticed that our stalwart Deputy County Manager Jared Biggs is not in this week. He's out on vacation. He will be back on Monday, the 10th. And I will be returning the afternoon of August 13th into the office. That is, I return in the morning, but I will be available remotely until then. The Galloping Goose Park project, redevelopment project, starts this coming Monday. So I've asked Greg to communicate with the people who park over in the courthouse parking lot that they will have some significant parking impacts for the next 3 weeks. While everything is removed, there's a new retaining wall built. The park is completed. And then the sculpture that Governor Polis and the state has commissioned will go into the park later in September. So we're looking at completing the park by the end of August, and then the sculpture to commemorate the Colorado 150 US 250 anniversary will go in September. And then I do anticipate the governor scheduling a ribbon cutting and or other ceremony from the state's behalf in October. Couple other things, sorry. The East End Connector Trail was going to start this fall in a phased approach, but we know that this is going to be a substantial project to connect the existing Idorado Legacy Trail all the way to the Bridalveil parking lot. I have decided to postpone that until next spring so that we can bid the project out and have it constructed all in one shot. So the other benefit to that is that it would not have us creating a new crosswalk right before the Idorado mine building, which we've all been a bit concerned about the safety of that because that is a blind corner. So I wanted to give the commissioners a heads up about that. We've had some substantial flooding impacts to Down Valley Park. However, our parks crew has remediated all of the washouts. I did visit the Placerville Cemetery with a what do you call them? An iron worker, welder, who has expressed interest in that entryway sign. And then in visiting the park, I realized the cemetery in Placerville, there's an immense amount of history. So in speaking with Rich Hamilton, we've tagged in John Wentropsky, Ted Wilson from the Historic Commission, and Tori Anderson with True North Design Works to come up with verbiage for an interpretive sign there at the entrance of the park. Also, I spoke at length with George Greenbank yesterday, and I'm connecting George with that group of folks on our historical commission so that we might be able to have a sign that could go in either later this fall or early next year. I would like to talk to the commissioners at longer length about how we want to what we want to do with the Placerville Cemetery, but tentatively I've asked Rich and our Parks Department to spec out a walking path, a graded walking path around the cemetery so that folks can more easily understand and connect with the history there. On September 12th at Down Valley Park, it will be the 20-year anniversary of the park's creation. So from 4 to 8 p.m., we're going to be organizing a celebration at the park, which will also serve as a going away / retirement party for Rich Hamilton, our park supervisor. Hope folks can join us, and we will obviously send a lot more information as we get closer. I've learned that within the Norwood Fire Department, and I'm almost done. I see our Deputy DA there. I'll wrap it up quickly. But Chief Bachroth is staying on with the Norwood Fire Department for a while longer. He has asked that we continue to communicate with him on all fire-related matters. at his email, which is norwoodchief@norwoodcofire.com. norwoodchief@norwoodcofire.com. I've also asked Shannon, Linnea, and Ramona to meet with the sheriff, myself, Jen Dinsmore, and a representative from our IT department to do a brief after action from their experiences in the Gold Mountain fire. There will be certainly a longer after action report that will likely be conducted by Uray County that we will be involved in. But as it pertains to evacuations, notifications, communication within the Emergency Operations Center, I thought it would be great or best if we could fine tune what they learned and look at any policies that we might be lacking if and when a wildfire has a significant impact within San Miguel County. Speaking of that, we do have clarification in our employee handbook about employees' time and when they will be paid overtime related to disasters that occur within our own county, but it did not get specific to disasters that our staff might be allocated to in a different county. So on our meeting on the 19th, there will be we've been working on a policy clarification with HR and legal, and we would be bringing that to the commissioners along with a clarification about our 457 retirement plan match that has been interpreted a bit ambiguously in the past. So we're trying to bring greater understanding and clarity to that. And that's all I have for you today. Do you have any questions for me?
No questions.
No questions, but thank you very much for your suggestion to the emergency management team that they do that kind of learning debriefing. That's you know, I was sorry that Shannon had to work so hard during that fire, but also view that as an opportunity for learning. And so I think to kind of formalize all that, it's a really good idea, Mike.
And it was a bit interesting because Shannon was actually deployed by the state of Colorado, not by the sheriff or me or the BOCC to whom she reports. And then Linnea is split between Uray and San Miguel County equally for her time, but she ended up spending an extreme amount of time on that. So trying to think through how we treat these unique situations that might occur in the future, as well as what policies we want to adopt. We're going to hopefully have those as a suite of policies for the commissioners to consider in the fall, potentially a wintertime adoption so that we can disseminate that information amongst all staff long before we get into a wildfire or flooding season next year.
Great.
Thanks.
Look forward to that.
All right.
Okay.
Hi,
Hi,
welcome.
thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
And I
Um,
apologize. Would Megan or Carmen be able to change the direction of the camera so that the folks online can see Mr. Clothier? Thank you.
Great. So we have our new Deputy District Attorney, Jonathan Clothier, here with us, and we're just going to have a little intro and
Sure.
get to know you and welcome you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I've been with the office here in San Miguel for about the last month, taking over from Matt Bama, who's moved on to private practice. And prior to that, I had worked for a period of time for the 7th Judicial District District Attorney's Office in Montrose. I'm fairly new to Colorado. I've been here about 3 years. Prior to that, I was in New England and I practiced law there for a long period of time. I was first admitted to the New Hampshire bar in 2003, and majority of the legal work I did there was actually criminal defense, private, and also on a court-appointed counsel system that they have there for indigent defendants. And I had my own practice and ran that for about 15 years. So when I moved here to Colorado, my wife had a work opportunity that we moved out here for, and I took the Colorado bar and eventually worked for the district attorney's office in Montrose. And live here in Telluride, so when Matt decided to move on, Anna decided to move me here, so here I am.
Great. Well, we're lucky to have you, and
Thank you.
it's good to know you have housing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you're not new to the workload here in a DA's office, and that's,
No,
certainly.
it's different than what they do in Montrose somewhat. It's a lower volume, but it seems like it's each case is maybe more time consuming. There's a lot more interaction here, I think, with like victims and law enforcement is maybe more involved in the outcome of the cases here. So there is more sort of discussion to be had on each case. And also something I've noticed here is an awful lot of the cases get pretty complicated with witnesses that are from out of state because they're here on vacation or visiting or whatever, and it's quite difficult also from what I've seen so far. So it comes. In addition to San Miguel County, this position also handles the county court in Nucla. So that gets a little complicated. Once a month, there's court in Nucla that I have to attend. And then there's some spillover from those cases that winds up in Montrose. So some of that could be done on WebEx and some of it involves traveling down there. So.
How is your caseload in terms of your workload? Does it feel like manageable?
Yeah, it's reasonable.
That's great.
Depending on, it's difficult to say because it all depends on how the cases turn out.
Sure. Well, I know it's been a priority for San Miguel County to have a deputy DA here present physically, and I'm just so glad we're able to continue that.
Oh, well, thank
It
you.
means a lot, and I think that because you are physically here and part of the community, that's probably why those cases have a lot more sort of engagement. And
Yeah.
I mean, personally, that sounds like a good thing to me, right? That
It is.
victims are heard, law enforcement, you engage with them. It's not just kind of shuffling cases through. So
Right.
sounds like the public as well as the defendants are getting some, appropriate handholding.
I would say they are, yeah.
Yeah.
The people that want to be involved, we do try to take care of, and Lillian in the office does the initial contact with the victims, and she's very on top of it. So it's very good.
Great. Well, our doors are always open too, just to keep
Okay.
the stream of communication going on how your workload is looking. And as you settle into the role, it would be good to touch in fairly,
Absolutely.
often, just to see where you're at and how it's working out, and just making sure that you're, able to get what you need, and
Yeah.
that
Okay.
it's
Appreciate that.
working well. So please.
When I
Yeah.
visited you, I was a bit astonished at the condition of the offices. And immediately came upstairs to talk to Mike Cordonia about that, the county
Okay, that's
manager.
good, yeah.
Yeah, and he, I believe, has asked our facilities team to get you some paint and carpet. Is that moving along?
I think so. Someone was in the other day to check out the carpet again and get some final measurements and stuff, so I
But the
think.
paint is really the problem. It's like lavender with
It
all
is.
this like spackling in random places. It's really,
It's
you deserve everybody deserves a slightly nicer workspace, so.
Yeah, it would be good for when we have visitors in and so forth.
Yeah, and just for your,
It would be nice. Yeah, I would really appreciate that.
but has Greg been in to talk about paint? Or would that be something you do with Lillian?
He has been in, and like I said, I think he was in the other day looking at the flooring situation, so I'm not
Okay.
sure if they have some order of events. I didn't ask him about the paint when he stopped.
All right, I'm gonna touch base with him on that because.
Jonathan, we were just still in kind of a holding pattern. You were going to email us what timing, paint color, and some of those details, but we can follow up.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
let me know what you need. I didn't remember that, but sure.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's
Yeah, it's
important.
just, we can be better.
Yeah.
Especially in that beautiful historic building.
Yeah, it's a great office. A little painted will be perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Do you have any questions for us or you,
I
for
don't think
staff in
so,
general? Okay.
At this time, but, haven't met everybody here prior, so hopefully I can meet everyone on an individual basis at some point. Either feel free to stop by, see what's going on in the office, or reach out to me and I'd be happy to.
Great. I will do so. Come and
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
check out that
Yeah.
lavender paint
Yeah,
and
very nice.
Maybe use some nicer wall hangings. When
Yeah,
I retire, maybe I'll come down and be the
Yeah.
interior decorator for
there you go. Perfect. Yeah.
Great. I do notice we have a member of the public who has their hand raised, so I'm going to ask Mr. Tooley to unmute himself. And if you just have any quick comments to bring to Mr. Clothier, now is your time, Mr. Tooley.
Hi, folks. So if you're not aware, both the historic preservation officer and the planning, the town of Telluride is Mr. Clothier's. Since she's holding both roles, I assume that goes to her skills in those matters. I've not met her, but I did sit next to her for most of a meeting there in the back of the room, back at the start of July. But you both strike me as very professional folks. As you may be aware, there's been a lot of turnover. Kay Simon, to your right, is retiring. We've just lost the parks director. Rich Hamilton, the parks operation guy, is retiring. Of course, your wife filling the position there. One of the big factors that's facing, and I think this is salient in a number of respects, is the high cost of building the critical workforce housing and what those selection processes are and how the population that actually lives here is managed. Currently that cost is $1 million a unit. And somebody's got to be paying that. I'd also like to note an allegation that I'm making from both here in Colorado and in Washington State of a consistent practice of targeting folks who can speak intelligently on the financial aspects of planning. There's the utility approach of
Mr. Tooley,
planning. There's some
Mis-
pioneer. Is my time up?
yes, it is, and that's a little off topic here as well. But thank you so much for bringing up those earlier
Well,
points.
we're talking about planning practice, and if I assume the commission is
No, but we're
aware that I
right
have
now
a
our
love
agenda
Raiders
item. Right now our agenda item
lost
is
case before
having.
Mr.
Sorry to cut you off, Mr. Tooley, but right now we're getting an intro from Mr. Clothier, and the topic at hand is not the planning department. But you can.
Well, it's the relation between his office and how the risk Mr. Clothier is at it being groomed in these practices, as Mr. Bama most definitely was. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Anything else?
I don't think I have anything else for you, but we'll be back at some point, an update or what we have going on.
It's really nice to see you, and I'll make a better effort to swing by. I hardly ever
Sure.
visited with Matt down there, and
Yeah,
we're all part of the same team, so thank you
Great.
for being.
yeah. Well, anytime.
Great.
Forward to seeing you all.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
No problem.
Okay, moving on, we're just a little behind schedule here. to item 8A under planning matters, public hearing, consideration of a land use code amendment to section 5-1305B to amend the definition of qualified owner with related amendments to section 5-1305C and 5-1350F with approval for the chair to sign resolution 2026-30. And I'm going to hand it over to Planning Director Kay Simonson to give a presentation.
Okay, so yeah, good morning. As mentioned, this is a land use code amendment to amend the definition of affordable housing qualified owner. Land use code section 5-1305 contains all the guidelines, rules, and regulations governing affordable housing in the Telluride R1 school district. 5-1305B is the definition of qualified owner. The town of Mountain Village is not included because they weren't incorporated when section 5-13 was first written. And until recently, we didn't have a reason to change that because they did not own and were not developing affordable housing in the unincorporated county. But with their planned development of the Ilium property, they do need to be classified as a qualified owner. So we'd be changing 5-1305B definitions, specifically adding the town of Mountain Village to the qualified owners. So you would read an employee, project developer, or non-occupant owner whose right to own affordable housing has been certified by the Housing Authority or the Housing Authority, San Miguel County, the town of Telluride, or the town of Mountain Village. And then we'd have a couple of corresponding changes in 5-1305C and 5-1305F. This was referred to a number of agencies. The county attorney noted a couple of small changes in the town of Norwood. Also provided comments stating that while the proposed amendment does not impact the town, she encouraged ongoing collaboration regarding regional housing strategies. Public notice, the public hearing notice was published in the Telluride Times on July 16th. The draft code amendment has been posted on the county website, and we have not received any public comment. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended adoption as presented at their June 11th meeting. Review standards for land use code amendments are contained as LUC section 5-1802. Basically, they require that the code amendment be first of all, that be initiated by persons who are residents of or own property in the county or by the county. And this amendment was initiated by myself following a work session between the town of Mountain Village and BOCC, where this was noted as one of the things that needed to be addressed. And then the one criterion is that the land use code amendment shall be drafted in a form consistent with the organizational format and style of the code. And then finally, section 1-402, policies of the land use code exist, and the purpose of that is to implement the policies of San Miguel County regarding land use and development, housing, growth, and related issues as adopted and amended from time to time. So I have a sample motion here for you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kay. I don't have any questions at this point. Everything was very clear in the packet. How about you, Sam?
Same, very straightforward. Glad to
Okay.
see this definitely moving along.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, given we don't have any questions or comments at this point, I would like it to open it up to public input and comments. Anyone who would like to speak to this issue, you have 3 minutes. I don't see anyone in the room interested in speaking to this. We'll look in the Zoom room. Okay, Mr. Tooley.
And just to clarify, when you opened it up for public comment, that is the formal opening of the public hearing, correct?
Correct.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks. All right, Mr. Tooley, would you like to comment on this matter?
I would like to, but I am unfortunately unable and do the continuing practice of characterizing my comments concerning severe practice problems within land use and law in San Miguel County, I am unable to do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to make public comment on the matter? Okay. Well, it looks like we don't have any other public comment, so I will close the public hearing portion of this agenda item. And move on to BOCC discussion.
Again, very straightforward. Appreciate staff taking care of this kind of housekeeping item. No questions or comments from me.
Yeah, I think this is a necessary amendment to the code. And as Kay stated, it was, the town of Mountain Village was not incorporated when all this language was formally adopted. So just a natural housekeeping step here. So yeah, can I get a motion?
You can. I move to adopt resolution number 2026-30, approving amendments to San Miguel County Land Use Code to amend section 5-1305, guidelines, rules, and regulations governing affordable housing in the Telluride R1 school district to add the town of Mountain Village as a qualified owner, as presented, based on the finding that the proposed amendment complies with the standards of Land Use Code section 5-1802, Land Use Code amendments, and is consistent with Land Use Code section 1-4 purposes of the Land Use Code.
I second that. Can all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Moving on to another public hearing, consideration of a land use code amendment to section 5-406, wildfire areas with related amendments to Article 7, definitions with approval of the chair's signature on resolution 2026-31. And back to Kay for presentation on this.
Okay, thank you. So this is also something to kind of bring our code along to match recent statute and other changes. In 2023, Senate Bill 23-166 mandated the creation of the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. And there were obligatory timelines for adoption and enforcement of the Resiliency Code. We had to adopt it by April 1st and implement by July 1st. So the Planning Commission recommended adoption on March 12th. BOCC adopted it just under the wire on April 1st. And it's now in effect here in the county. Any complete applications that were received prior to July 1st will follow the old code. Applications received or made complete after July 1st are subject to the Wildfire Resiliency Code. Because of that change, we need to update section 5-4 areas of state and local interest, specifically section 5-406 wildfire areas. That section is pretty basic. It dictates roof materials, a 10-foot fire break, and asks for buried power and phone lines. And then we also have definitions in Article 7 for wildfire area and wildfire hazard. The Wildfire Resiliency Code provides very specific standards for building materials, building design, setbacks, siting, and vegetation. So some of the stuff that's in our draft code or in our current code are no longer necessary. And it's also notable that what's in 5406 right now is applicable to development seeking building permits, but it doesn't address special use permits, PUDs, and subdivisions, which is where a lot of the real work begins with wildfire resiliency and hardening and being prepared for wildfire. So we want to take this opportunity to add that. Just as a note, this is the Wildfire Resiliency Code map. You really can't quite see the boundaries of the county too well. They go along here, and then this is the east end and then back over here. And you can see that, high intensity is red, moderate intensity is orange, low intensity is yellow, and then areas that are not considered a hazard are just not colored, or they're public lands on there.
Quick question,
yeah.
is the intensity rating directly correlated with the wildland urban interface, or more like fuels?
Yeah, so this map was prepared by the state, and part of it is the wildland urban interface, part of it is fuels, part of it is terrain. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. And, this is just a screen grab here, but if you were to go into this map, you could zoom in and you'll see that they're, just polygons. And they're a little bit, they're very chunky. So this is really used in applying the resiliency code. It has some applicability, would have some applicability in how we apply the land use code. But the most important thing is that this map is for the wildfire resiliency code. And that's why the state prepared it.
While we're talking about the map, I've heard other county commissioners discuss that they were dissatisfied with the map the state prepared. And there is an opportunity for us to request adjustments or something. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but do we have a concern about the map?
So leading up to this, definitely a lot of people here at the county were involved. Shannon Armstrong was involved. Matt Gonzalez was involved. I think Heather Widland, our GIS director, was involved. And, right now the county, we don't have the capabilities to really suggest alternative mapping.
Yeah.
This is what we're working with for now. I think if Matt were down here in the room, he would, say that we'll see where this goes. And if we discover that we need more specific mapping or different mapping, we can then look into anything there.
And I understand too, do I have this right, that a landowner can contest their own property's designation? So I think that was a little bit reassuring to me too, so that
Yeah.
Do I have that right?
They can do like a ground truthing
Yeah,
study.
Yes.
yeah, okay.
And yeah. And, there are, like I said, these are really chunky polygons
Yeah.
as well. And, so that's why, people can present their alternatives and, then we evaluate it and see if we agree or not.
I mean, it makes sense to me that virtually all the county is in medium to high.
Yeah.
Not so much the west end, but.
Yeah.
Intuitively, it makes sense.
Mhm.
And also regarding the maps, it says in your, well, I can wait, keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the proposed amendment replaces the development standards within 5406 with references to the Wildfire Resiliency Code. And then what we wanted to do here was use consistent terminology and then provide the guidance for design and review of land use applications. So we say that building construction must be consistent with the Wildfire Resiliency Code, and that includes building design, construction, and materials. Vegetation management, the vegetation and such around on the property associated with the building permit must be consistent with the Wildfire Resiliency Code. But then we go to the next step, which is looking at our land development applications, subdivisions, and PUDs, because those aren't picked up by the Wildfire Resiliency Code. So what we say in here is that we want to make sure that subdivision roads are designed to act as fire breaks. and allow emergency access and evacuation routes. That's always a critical thing, especially in our more remote subdivisions and developments. That's one thing that, working with fire managers, all over the West Slope over the years, that's one thing that they emphasize is making sure that people can get in, can get out, and also that it helps provide a fire break and give them a bit of a leg up on the fire. And then we also would ask for vegetation management plans for roads and open space within a subdivision. So making sure that when they're designing that subdivision, that they're thinking ahead to what they would do and how they would manage that. We continue to request that power, phone, and other utility lines be buried. It's safer in terms of a possible fire ignition. And also, if you have buried lines, you're less likely to have weather and, other disruptions.
Quick question on that, Kay. What's the process? Because sometimes that's not possible given
Mhm.
topography and whatnot. What is the process within the planning department for how utility lines are executed?
So if somebody were submitting a plan and they said, we cannot bury our service line because of terrain or geology or something like that, we can recognize that and say, okay, you tried, it's not an option. It might be that they bury part of it, but not all of it. So we have the flexibility. It's not mandatory. It's strongly encouraged.
To that point, in the previous, let's see, 5-406C, it said power and telephone lines shall be buried. And in the revised one, we say it's encouraged.
Mhm.
That's like, I kind of like the shall.
Yeah.
Why did we soften that?
And we softened it for the exact reason that, we just discussed, is we recognize that it's not always technically feasible or geologically feasible.
I'd rather we say that, which is that power and telephone lines or service lines, if that's a better term, shall be buried unless, proven unfeasible or infeasible or something like that. Does that make sense? I think that's so important. We saw that the Gold Mountain fire, well, we believe started by a downed power line, and so where we can get these underground, I think we should.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it might be a little potentially more cost prohibitive up front, but the risks are really eminent. And so anywhere that those lines can be buried, they should. And
Yeah.
so some
And-
stronger language around that would be good.
Yeah, we don't necessarily want to make just a financial decision. We want there to
Yes.
be a technical reason.
Right.
Yes.
Because it's always more costly to bury power lines than it is to run an
Yeah.
overhead line.
Right.
Do we want to refine that language right now, or are you gonna come back with this?
So when we get to the motion,
Yeah,
you could just add in a condition to
adjust.
that.
Okay, so it would say bearing of service lines. I don't know why it says to other development. That would be like, that's like to the source, right?
When we get to the when I get to the end here, I'll switch to the document so we can do some actual editing.
Great, okay, thanks.
And then, as mentioned, require wildfire mitigation plans for SUPs, PUDs, and subdivisions. And, even requiring on the SUP level, we want people to think about if there were a fire started within the property, how are they going to deal with it immediately to prevent spread? And also, what are the hazards associated, with that activity or use that could be at risk if a wildfire is coming? Providing protection, whether it's to structures or equipment or materials to, not increase the degree of hazard. And then we'd have corresponding amendments in Article 7 definitions. We sent this out to a number of referral agencies and we did receive a comment from the county attorney noting an error, which we've corrected. And then Candy Meehan with Town Norwood noted the town is outside of mapped WUI areas and stated that Norwood and Wrights Mesa could be impacted by new requirements with regard to future subdivision development. And I would add that that impact could be in a very positive way in, for terms of increasing or reducing risk.
I really didn't understand her comment. Can you help me? Okay, because it says the proposed text would not be limited to mapped WUI areas. I thought that it
Yeah.
specifically does, is limited to mapped WUI areas.
So the Wildfire Resiliency Code is limited to the areas, the high and medium hazard areas. For the rest of this, the subdivision level stuff, the PUD, the SUPs, we don't necessarily have to limit it only to the mapped areas. We'll use that as a point of information. But, as we've seen time and time again, areas that are considered somewhat lower risk can suddenly burn quite easily
Yeah.
if a fire gets going. So, the whole goal is wildfire protection or wildfire prevention, throughout the county and mitigating all risks, even if they're not considered a high risk area.
This is what confuses me generally about this, and I'm sorry if I missed it when we were talking with Matt about adopting the code, but I think what you've said is that the new code does not apply to PUDs, subdivisions, and special use permits, and I don't understand why that is the case.
So the Wildfire Resiliency Code is applied at the time of building permit.
Yeah,
So it's not applied at the time that we're looking at the subdivision layout or
okay,
design.
okay,
When we're looking at SUP, which might not have a building permit associated with it.
sure,
So the intent of putting it here in section 5406, our areas of state and local interest, is to give us an opportunity to have property owners and developers really think about it and give it to us ahead of time.
I see.
And, because if we really want to have, a successful, resilient community, we need to start at the big picture, the landscape level. And if we only focus at the building permit individual property level, that causes extreme fragmentation and really increases our risks.
Right. And by having this built into the code, it would, in theory, deter any kind of a development that would be kind of at odds with the wildfire resiliency code. So it's kind of a preemptive,
I see.
kind of like, this is what you're going to be contending with and what any given individual development will be contending with to get permitted.
Yeah. And
So then, just to confirm, if a home, let's say a vacant lot, is located within a subdivision or PUD currently, right? They just haven't built on it yet, but they come in for their building permit, they are subject to the new code, correct?
that is correct.
Okay,
So
that's
they'll,
a relief.
yeah.
Okay. I thought they were just all excluded. I'm like, that's
No,
our,
no, no.
most of our community.
no.
Yeah.
When I talk about subdivisions in this context, I'm talking about the creation of new
I do understand
subdivisions.
that. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, that is very reassuring. Thank
Yeah,
you.
subdivision design, how you lay it out, how you
Yeah,
plat your lots, design your roads, that has a lot to do with how defensible it will be.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks for walking me through that.
Yeah. So our public hearing notice was published in the Telluride Times on July 16th, and the amendment has been, as always, posted on the county website. We have not received any public comment. At their June 11th meeting, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended adoption as presented. I did afterwards add a couple of things in, a couple of points in there where I say, as may be amended, after the references to the Wildfire Resiliency Code, just to make clear that that is a document that can change. And we don't have questions in the future. Well, is that the April 1, 2026 version forever? No, it's as may be amended. So I did add that in. As noted before, the review standards are contained in 51802. This amendment was initiated by me in response to adoption of the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code, and it has been drafted in a form consistent with the organizational format and style of the code. And it is also, in line with Section 1-402 policies, of the Land Use Code, in that we are implementing policies of the county regarding land use and development, housing, growth, and related issues. So this is the sample motion. And what you could do is so move to approve amendments with corresponding amendments as presented, strike as presented based on the finding that, and then with the following condition, and I'll have to pull up the draft amendment to actually kind of craft that.
Sure, that's great. I do have two other questions.
Please.
Somewhere in here it says, it makes reference to San Miguel County's adopted wildfire maps. Where is that?
So the maps were adopted through the I think we would consider it to be the Wildfire Resiliency Code map. There's a definition that references the maps.
Let's see. Landscaping. What is this? You can find where it was. Let me just find it. Oh, there we go. Okay, it's 5-406 wildfire areas, right in the opening statement. San Miguel's adopted wildfire maps. So I'm just wondering if rather than saying adopted wildfire maps, if it should just say the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code map.
This leaves us free to, if we decide we want to adopt more specific maps
Okay.
or alternate maps, we can use those.
Okay, and you can confirm that we have adopted wildfire maps?
It was part of the Wildfire Resiliency Code update that we adopted the map that I showed you.
Okay.
So that is the map in reference currently.
I don't remember that being part of it, but that's just, it is part of it.
It was one of the many details.
Yes, okay. And then my other question, this is a piece in here that we aren't adjusting, but I could not for the life of me understand. Article 7 definitions, the second one, which again, we're not, you're not suggesting we refine here, wildfire hazard. And just this language is just, I read it 5 times and I don't get it. The potential for a wildfire sufficiently adverse to past, current, or foreseeable construction or land use as to constitute a significant hazard. That first part up until as to constitute a significant hazard, I just don't even know what that means. And I wonder if we could clean it up.
So what we're saying is, pre-existing development that's going to be built now and development that might be built in the future. That's what it's saying.
I get that, but let's see, the potential for a wildfire sufficiently adverse it feels like we're missing some words or something.
I think it's saying a wildfire that's bad enough to constitute a significant hazard.
Yeah.
It's a weird way to say it, but sufficiently adverse is saying a
Yeah.
severe enough wildfire that it would
That it
be
could impact.
a significant
Or-
hazard to public health and safety or property.
Yeah, and so, a wildfire hazard is or exists when there is the potential for a wildfire sufficiently adverse to past, current, or foreseeable construction,
I mean, I'm fine if everybody else is fine with it, but it would seem more clear if we said the potential for a wildfire to sufficiently adversely impact past, current, or foreseeable construction or land use. But if this makes sense to a lawyer and you don't think that this would throw anybody off, It's okay.
I think it's, I mean, it could be more clearly worded, but I understand what it's saying. Even though it's a little wordy.
Yeah. Are you all right with it, Galina?
I mean, I hear what you're saying. It is confusing the way that it's constructed. I mean, could we add the word impact? Because that, in my mind, from layman's terms, would make it way more clear
Yeah.
as to how it reads.
I mean, I think since while we're at it, let's just clean it up, I think, you know, we find ourselves here often trying to interpret the land use code, and if we're making a change anyway, I think we should just clean it up. And my suggestion would be the potential for a wildfire to to have sufficiently oh my gosh, I see now why it's written that way. The potential for a wildfire to have sufficient adverse impacts. I don't know, maybe that's no better.
I think the word impacts does help make it more clear.
However, just-
I had to reread it like a couple of times when I was reading the packet too to understand.
I would say the potential for a wildfire to sufficiently adversely impact past, current, or foreseeable construction. Does that make better sense?
Sufficiently.
I'm writing it down. Wildfire to sufficiently, I don't know why we need that sufficiently, but adversely impact past. Do we even need sufficiently, Kay?
I don't think so.
It seems redundant. I would just say the impact for a wildfire to adversely impact past, current.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, if you don't mind.
And then I would add in after land use the word so.
Yeah, so,
So,
okay,
so as to, yes.
okay. Okay,
Um,
thank you.
okay, so yeah,
I think I have all this.
yeah. And then going up to the utilities and infrastructure, what we have here is power, telephone, and other utility lines in new subdivisions shall be buried. Burying of service lines to other development is encouraged. So what I was thinking of was more than, you know, when you're getting down to the individual lots where, or individual parcels where, you know, probably the main infrastructure is already in. So I guess, I was separating out between new subdivisions where they're putting in new infrastructure versus existing, you know, lots, parcels, platted areas where there's different levels of what's in there.
So, okay, this is
So
helpful.
that was why I had shall in the first one, but encouraged in the second.
So I get the first one completely, but then the second one, just help me out. Oh, okay, burying of services lines to other development or in other development?
No.
It would be to the development.
To, yeah.
So it's from where to where?
So the first one would be, so Roman numeral 1, that would
Yep.
be if somebody's creating a new subdivision.
Got it.
Roman numeral 2, somebody goes out and buys a piece of land and they want to build on it. And we're saying, we encourage you to underground that power line. We're not saying it's mandatory.
And is that where the language that
That's-
Anne suggested around putting some parameters around that would be inserted?
So we're basically, yeah, that's what I was thinking, but
Yeah.
now you've helped me understand the
Yeah.
difference. But I feel like what we're saying then is you have an existing subdivision, they were not required to bury service lines. But do we want now to require vacant land that is now being developed to bury their lines in that subdivision? Unless it's infeasible.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, this could be a 35-acre tract as well, where they've got, you know, overhead power lines along the road. You know, as I said, you know, there's a lot of cost, and when you're doing a subdivision, it's just part of doing your infrastructure.
Right.
But when you're building an individual home, I'm a little concerned about the amount of cost that we would add to it.
Right. But the flip side to that is I can't really think of a place in the county, even out on the west end in some of those open areas where there isn't wildfire risk from overhead power lines, and it is kind of an imminent threat.
I mean, I just got approval to have a tree cut on my neighbor's property because it was touching my service line. And every time the wind blew, I got really nervous.
Right.
But so it's strongly encouraged, but that was why I wrote it that way is new subdivisions, absolutely, you got to bury it. But if it's an existing lot, somebody wants to build a house, being cognizant of the cost of that, and that's
Yeah.
why it's encouraged.
Oh. I mean, unless proven infeasible doesn't really include cost prohibitive, right? Because it's all
No, that's really, the feasibility is coming down to geography.
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
Yeah, I know it's a tough call. I would be curious what the cost breakdown is, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be lot by lot, case by case. But in the name of wildfire resiliency, I mean, this is and we're learning more and more cases of wildfires being started by transmission lines.
Right.
And it's a factor. I'm inclined to make a strong nudge towards requirement, where feasible.
Do we have any sense of what that cost is?
No,
Not a
it-
planning question.
Yeah, it really does is highly variable. How much rock is there in the soil?
Yeah.
What's the terrain like? How far are they going?
Boy.
Yeah.
This is a tough one.
Such a small detail, but it is pretty important.
And we could say is strongly encouraged.
We definitely want to say that.
Yeah.
Wonder if Mike is on, we could rely on him for his wisdom. Sorry, Mike. Or Laura, or anybody else?
Mike, are you following and have any input for us on this detail?
You're muted.
Very sorry, I zoned out for a moment, honestly. So
Okay. We can fill you in.
It's-
So you can see on the screen, we're
yeah,
on.
I've been
Yeah, the bearing of service lines, and the question is, it's clear from section 1 here, or part 1, that we would require utility lines to be buried in new subdivisions. The question is, in an existing subdivision, vacant land, do we also require, individual property owners who are developing their lots to require, to underline their service lines? And Galena and I are saying, yeah, because those above ground lines are vulnerable to start
right.
fire, but then there's the added cost, and we don't really know like how much, what do we,
The cost could be significant. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think it's going to be an additional barrier towards affordability. I understand the impact that it has on
right.
neighboring properties, but I would say wherever feasible, and perhaps ask any applicant to show, why it is infeasible, given, because bearing in certain topography, or if you're lacking the let's say it crosses in my property where I live, it crosses a river. The burying cost, it would be infeasible to bury the under the San Miguel River to get to my house. But I think, having a requirement that says, please show us your plan of underlining or a detailed explanation of why you cannot, so that it wouldn't prohibit me from developing on my property because I have to have one overhead line to get there, rather than go underneath the river.
Yeah, we had already suggested that we add, I have unless proven infeasible, but I think wherever feasible is better. The question is, does that allow for consideration of costs?
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, everything's feasible if you throw enough money at it.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
And so, you know, what do you define as feasible? I would prefer to just say bearing of service lines to other development is strongly encouraged and leave it at that, because people are going to be having to make decisions, you know, balancing their construction costs, versus, you know, because that helps their insurance.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a positive to them. It's not just
Mhm.
but on the other hand,
And or you could also ask them to show a mitigation plan if it isn't feasible to bury it, such as I will cut everything that is, you know, within a falling distance of that line that is on my property. Obviously, if it's going through BLM and Forest Service and others, you might not be able to, but if it's through private property, you know, that could be the alternative, is ensuring that there is a 50 or 100-foot clear swath that is maintained. Now the enforceability of that long term becomes the problem.
yeah, individual service lines don't necessarily need that 50 to 100 feet, but they do need a fair distance around that. And sometimes that service line, because of where they're tying into Sampa, may not be on their property.
Sure.
And so that brings into another players.
And maybe you just require a mitigation plan for that. And part of that mitigation plan is either burying it, and if that's infeasible, clearing a right of way, and then, you know, specifying that trees, certain types of trees could not be planted within that right of way for future vulnerability.
What are your thoughts on implementing that in the code?
I think it's way more complex than one sentence in your 1041 regs.
I mean, it's less of a risk to the property owner burying lines. And I think given our current insurance climate and the climate itself, I would think where feasible, new build would highly consider burying the lines. And if it's, you know, strongly encouraged through our code, that's a nudge towards that. I do have some inhibitions around making building any more less affordable, and it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's a balance there. So perhaps we include the word strongly. I think that the whole mitigation, I'm concerned it just gets really complicated in the code if we're putting in a whole mitigation plan there.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's not, I'd rather do it the other way, but I think we have to, you know, there are trade-offs and everything, and we're talking probably about single homes that are, I mean, you know, probably, yeah, okay, I'm good.
I wonder, and I hate to interrupt, but where you
Okay.
have, it's to clarify service lines to other development, to existing development. I guess other development isn't
Yeah.
clear to me as a layperson, that you're talking about existing one. So like what's my trigger point? Is it when I make any modification? Oh, I want to build a garage. Okay, yes. It should be, in my opinion,
Yeah.
any modification or addition to a structure. At that point, we would say, hey, we really want you to bury your lines and or create a corridor to ensure that the lines are protected.
So maybe just say burying of service lines within existing subdivisions, and, oh no,
It's
that's
not just subdivisions. This is out on the mesas.
Why don't we just say burying of service lines on other properties is strongly encouraged? Or other properties?
To existing and new
I
development.
like existing and new. That
Yeah.
looks good.
Yeah.
Existing and new development. Okay. I mean, the word development is so vague in my mind, but I know planners, it makes sense to you, so. Okay, and then the other piece, K, that we were gonna adjust was that definition of wildfire hazard.
Yeah.
Did you?
She
Oh, you
updated
did
that.
Great. All right, for a wildfire to adversely impact. Perfect, okay. So then when we make the motion, we have to, I know how the public hearing, but just to
Yeah.
wrap this part up, when we make,
Yeah.
the motion, can we just say with amendments as discussed during this meeting?
Amendments to 5406C2 and to definition of wildfire hazard
Perfect,
as discussed in the meeting.
thank you very much. Okay,
And then, yeah, we'll, update the resolution accordingly.
Great. Any other thoughts or comments?
that's all from me.
Okay, I had a really similar thought around that you already unearthed, so thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, at this point, I am going to open up the public hearing portion of the meeting. Anyone who'd like to speak to the matter, they have 3 minutes. I notice there's no one in the room that I believe would like to speak to this. But we have a hand up on the Zoom room from Mr. Tooley. Mr. Tooley, go ahead.
Hey, y'all. So just a general point about planning or civil service in general, and how it relates to the law. Not everything can be specifically logically delineated. The future is not predetermined. We have free will, or at least we used to. And it takes professional judgment to do that, and it takes civic judgment, and it takes respect for those items. And I see that as a glaring example in as an omission in San Miguel County and its political subdivisions in their practice. Everybody wants everything to be logically cut and dry and coming to conclusions, and who's qualified to speak and who's not, et cetera, et cetera. And then secondly, just a second example to Candy Meehan's concerns, in that same context about Norwood, I would like to point out an area that is in that risk, and I think is also financially feasible for development, and that's Fall Creek above the existing development. I just spent the last week camping on some of the BLM land there and watching the traffic, a lot of construction traffic going up there, including some semi-transported earth moving equipment going on. I'm not sure what all's going on up there, but there's the State Land Board Wilson Mesa parcel, which if you haven't been there, is actually much lower than you might think. It's much below Woods Lake. It's certainly an affordable housing option, and there are fire risk issues there. That would be another good model for that. Those concerns and applying this code to that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And just knowing a special use permit that has been recently allocated, you might be seeing some of that truck traffic. There's a big defensible space fire mitigation project going on up on the mesa, and they're using Fall Creek as access point. So I think that might be that truck traffic that you've been seeing, Mr. Tooley. Okay, anyone else in the public would like to comment on this matter? Okay, seeing no hands in the room or in the Zoom room, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of our meeting. I don't really have any other points of discussion. I feel that all the amendments that we suggested address any of the questions and concerns that I had. Anything else from you, Commissioner Brown? Okay. Well, with that, do you have a crafty motion?
I'll give it a shot with some help from my friends. I move to adopt BOCC Resolution 2026-31, approving amendments to the San Miguel County Land Use Code to amend section 5-406 wildfire areas with corresponding amendments in Article 7 definitions. Based on the finding that the proposed amendment complies with the standards of Land Use Code section 5-1802 Land Use Code amendments and is consistent with Land Use Code section 1-4 purposes of the Land Use Code. Amendments will be as presented with the exception of section 5-406 C2 and Article 7 definitions specifically of wildfire hazard, which shall be further amended as discussed.
I second that. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Kay.
you.
Okay, moving on to item 8C, continuation from July 15th, 2026 of a public hearing on a land use code amendment regarding non-conforming lots with related amendments, approving the chair to sign resolution 2026-29.
May I request a quick bio break before we move into this conversation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's see, it's 11:15. Let's come back at 11:25.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, we back?
Will be in 2 seconds.
Cool.
On time we are.
Just in time. All right, we are going to move on to item 8C, continuation from the July 15th, 2026 of a public hearing on a land use code amendment regarding non-conforming lots with related amendments. Kay, do you have, oh, John is going to present to us here. Hi, John.
Good morning, commissioners, almost afternoon. County staff. Oh, thank you. County staff has revised the amendment to the county land use code regarding non-conforming lots to incorporate the revisions directed by the BOCC at the July 15th meeting. The amendment permits uses allowed by right, uses allowed subject to administrative review, and consideration of uses subject to one-step or two-step special use permit review on legally non-conforming lots in sections 5-307 forestry ag and open space, Wrights Mesa, and high country area. Those uses subject to one-step review, which this was really the big discussion point. Those uses subject to one-step review under the land use code in the aforementioned sections would be subject to two-step review process. The proposed land use code amendment and the accompanying BOCC resolution have been reviewed by the planning director and the county attorney. And hopefully this is just a case of buttoning up the resolution to incorporate your direction. And we have a motion in the packet to adopt the proposed amendment and to authorize the chair's signature on BOCC resolution 2026-29. And if you have any questions regarding language.
I do have a question. I thought that the direction from the BOCC was that any special use permit for a non-conforming lot would be subject to a two-step review. And in the draft that you just discussed, it was only those subject to a one-step review, which would be two-step. And I wondered about the administrative reviews. I think our thought process was that we wanted to make sure all of these applications had a public hearing. And so if by continuing to allow some to be approved by administrative review, those would not have a public hearing.
So, yeah, that wasn't our understanding at all. We were talking about, the focus was on the special use permits.
Yeah.
And the direction that, as we understood it, was for making sure that the one step got additional review by going to two steps. So that is the change that we made. If we were to go into the code and start also picking all of the administrative reviews.
Again, non-conforming lots.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't our understanding. And, keep in mind, what our administrative reviews are. In those zone districts, they tend to be, for example, accessory structures. And things like that. And I really would not advise you to make those subject to removing them from administrative review, which is very objective, to a discretionary hearing, which is quite subjective, when we don't necessarily have the criteria for that in our code. And keep in mind always that every administrative decision can always be appealed to the board.
Okay.
And then in which case you would review it de novo. You would review it as if,
sure,
it's not just on the record, you're reviewing the whole application. So, I mean, that's one thing to keep in mind, that safety rail is already there.
I do understand that. But if no noticing is required, for an administrative review, the neighbors might not even know that it's been approved until the activity is underway. Am I correct about that?
So I'm gonna pull up the F zone. And just, refresh your memory on.
I've reviewed it, but I
Yeah.
think that's good for the public. I
Um,
pulled up that and the Rights Mesa zone.
Yeah, and I can go to Wrights Mesa as well too. But so this would be if anybody wants to do a caretaker unit. And it's a substandard lot. And so greater than 5 acres, between the 5 to 35 acres caretaker lot, all of a sudden you're putting them through a two-step process instead of a building permit. And or a daycare center. We're already changing logging and oil and gas. So it's not changing much in terms of the, if I don't see the need to move those two items in the F zone up.
See, I agree with you on the caretaker unit, particularly because of the work we're doing with the housing, on the housing code update, like I don't wanna
Yeah.
make that any harder. But I would, if I had the daycare center going in next door to me, I would wanna know. And again, am I correct that with an administrative review, there's no public noticing? It's just somebody makes an application, the planning department reviews and decides. And then next thing you know, there's a daycare center going up. And so, again, this is just for the non-conforming lots, but I feel like that should be subject to a two-step review.
And
That would-
yeah, I'll tell you, the likelihood of a daycare center in the F zone is very slim. And if you want to, have daycare centers subject to a special use permit, it would be better to make them subject to a special use permit rather than just, what's the difference between a 34.9 acre parcel and a 35 acre parcel?
That's not the distinction I'm concerned about.
Yeah. And then, here's the Wrights Mesa one, and, we got our secondary dwelling units, and then we're already taking care of logging and oil and gas. And the open land subdivision exemption still comes to the board for sign off. So again, saying let's move allowed uses to SUP.
That seems like a larger change, just because we don't have criteria that would apply to those administrative review uses.
Yeah.
And my understanding was the intention was to, those uses that are more likely to have impacts on the neighboring properties, to bring those up to the two-step process. But these administrative ones, as Kay noted, are very objective. There's not a balancing that's happening. It's, do you meet ABC? There's not like a mitigation of impacts element to those.
I would agree with that, and that was my understanding with the recommendation that we made,
Okay.
that it wasn't subject to the administrative review.
We're changing that part.
Right, no. And I also agree, just knowing that map that we looked at was really helpful, seeing where these non-conforming lots exist throughout the F zone and Wrights Mesa zone district. And I think Kay is correct in saying it would be a pretty rare case that a daycare center would be proposed. And I guess I would just offer a flip side to your concerns because of the lack of daycare facilities throughout the county.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to do that, and that I would have full faith in the administrative review process to make sure that it was going to be implemented in a safe and appropriate use for us, that it was cited appropriately. I think that would be enough, and I would encourage to see that kind of application because we need more. But I think it would be a rare case given the geography and how like feasible it would really be to open that kind of a facility in the F zone.
And also keep in mind that it also has a significant state licensing
Sure. Yeah.
process to
Yeah,
go
I
through.
think we're good. Thank you very much for talking that through with me. It just, I had left the previous meeting with a different understanding, but what you suggest makes sense to me. So
Okay.
I'm really good with it. And you know, I did feel like at the last meeting, I didn't get to kind of discuss why I was in support of these changes. You know, I had come into the meeting thinking, absolutely not, you know, we're upzoning, you know, Rights Mesa and the F zone and, you know, you guys really helped me understand why this makes sense. It's not just to correct past mistakes. I mean, truly, I came to understand that there were conflicting kind of elements of the land use code and that it was intended and had historically been interpreted to allow these special uses on non-conforming lots. And I spoke to, you know, people who've been involved with the planning department for a long time and came to understand that. So that really helped me, as well as Galena, you and I reviewing the East End Master Plan, the Rights Mesa Master Plan, the West End Vision Project. I looked at the Rights Mesa Rural Agricultural 2010 Zone District, which I believe reflects, you know, what that community is, sort of an up-to-date version of what the community wants out there. And that includes all sorts of sort of additional uses other than residential. And then, as you pointed out, there just aren't that many non-conforming lots that aren't in subdivisions. I love the addition to section 5-10, special uses, review criteria. I can go on, the site shall be sufficient in size to contain the proposed use and allow for adequate mitigation. That's a really important add. And then this change to the, from 1 step to 2 steps. So I've been convinced. Thank you for your patience and, you know, all the conversations we've had over these many months.
Yeah, and I as well, I think it's a good middle ground to address the concerns that were brought forward, as well as knowing, you always have to keep in mind the voices that aren't in the room, but have, you know, express those community values and those master plans and that vision project specifically. I've really kind of like utilized that as a baseline for this formulating this decision as to, you know, what future uses could look like, how that would benefit or not benefit the community, and balancing community character with economic growth and sustainability of the economy and the community at large. So I feel this is a good middle ground, and I'm quite comfortable with it. This is not a public hearing, but I do notice that there are some folks in the room as well as online. And I would encourage public comment. However, if you are bringing,
It is a public hearing.
oh,
It's continuation of.
thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Well, in that case, we are going to open the public hearing portion of this. And I would encourage folks to bring forward any new points that haven't been expressed in past meetings. And you will have 3 minutes, although if you need more time, we can address that as well. But I'd like to give everyone in the room or online an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes and go from there. Would either of you in the room like to speak to this? Nothing to add? Okay. Okay, and then looking at the Zoom room, I don't see any hands raised, but I'll give a moment to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to speak if they would like to. Oh, okay, I'm not seeing any hands. So I am going to close public comment. All right. Commissioner Brown, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, just one
Yeah.
other thought or point I wanted to reinforce. Mike and anybody else online, I guess Ramona, who will be working on the budget. I'd just like to remind you that we discussed last time considering whether we might be able to build in a code enforcement officer into the county staff next year. You know, recognizing we don't want to raise our taxes too much and all that, but I think we should have that full discussion. Because, yeah, it feels to me like we don't really have the capacity to do our job right now in that area, as hard as everybody is trying. So let's maybe just a reminder to consider that when we're talking about the 2027 budget.
And I couldn't agree more. And this has been a bit of a recurring theme, as it were, that, you know, we have all of these policies and regulations in place, but actually enforcing them is a whole nother beast. And it's, you know, our building department has a heavy lift with enforcement, and they're doing, in my eyes, a really good job with the resources they have. But it's a big county and a lot of diverse uses. And I think entertaining this code enforcement individual is something I would really like to consider looking at for the 2027 budget as well.
Noted. Thank you.
All right, I bet you're looking for a motion.
I am, if you were prepared.
I am going to be prepared with what the staff has.
I'm sorry, did you close the public hearing? Or
I did.
did you? Okay, thank you.
Okay. I move to adopt amendments to the San Miguel County Land Use Code, sections 5-307, forestry, agricultural, and open, which is the F zone, 5-314, open space, 5-319.1, rights Mesa, 1991 version, 5-321, high country area, 5-1908, non-conforming lots, and Article 7 definition to permit uses allowed by right and uses allowed subject to administrative review on non-conforming lots, and to allow consideration of special uses subject to one-step review or two-step review, and to authorize the chair's signature on BOCC Resolution 2026-29 based on the finding that the proposed amendments comply with the standards of the Land Use Code Section 5-1802 Land Use Code Amendments, and is consistent with Land Use Code Section 1-4 purposes of the Land Use Code. And I don't think we need to amend that motion at all, but I just want to make the point that while we will allow consideration of special uses subject to a one-step review, we have indicated in these revisions that those uses will, for non-conforming lots, actually require the two-step process. So I think this way it's written is perfect, but I just want to clarify that. That's a big change.
Great. Okay, I second that. How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye as well. Motion passes.
Okay.
Okay, so we've already gotten updates from County Manager Mike Ordonia earlier in the day. So we'll move on to Commissioner updates. Commissioner Brown, I can't wait to hear about your trip up north to Routt County for the CCAT gathering. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Good
Nice to see you
afternoon.
all.
And everything else you've been up to.
I have so many things to talk about, Galina. The first one, and let's see, do I need to go backwards or forwards? All right. The first one is I had a text yesterday from a Down Valley resident thanking us for installing a dog station at the west end of the River Trail M59. There had been one or two, I don't know where they are exactly on the other sort of segment, but now there's one that's there. And this is Don Lundberg. He had requested that at our classroom meeting, and he told me yesterday that it's been installed. So
great.
Thank you to, I guess, Rich and Tom and their crew. Thank you so much, Kay.
Thanks.
Ever closer. On the 23rd of July, which was almost 2 weeks ago, Galena, you and I both attended the Smart Board meeting, and I just want to report out to the public on that. We did approve as a Smart Board, a change to the structure of the gondola subcommittee, or the G sub as it's called, and this has been the working group of San Miguel County, the two towns, and TSG, the ski company, to kind of the last few years as gondola development has been taking place, or got discussions about that development and planning. And I think it was like this calendar year, everything changed because we were moving into kind of a more sort of technical stage, if you will, as opposed to conceptual, and the G sub needs to be a little bit more nimble and more operational, more tactical. And so it was suggested by some on the G sub that those who are no longer funding the sort of progress towards a new gondola might step down to create a smaller G sub that again can be a little bit more nimble. And I think both you and I had some concern about San Miguel County no longer being part of that working group, because it's been so effective in building consensus for, you know, the moving the gondola project along. And also as an opportunity for us to really be a little bit closer to the weeds for getting information and asking questions. But at that SMART meeting, I was reminded that San Miguel County will still be very well represented in the gondola project process in three different ways. One, we will continue to attend the leadership council meetings as I did and Lance did last week, and those will likely be more frequent. We will continue to get full updates monthly at the SMART board meeting, on which we have 2 commissioners. And then also that the G sub meetings are open to the public. So if we have a concern, we can still attend. We just won't be needing to be at everyone. And then finally, the SMART board, on which we have, you know, kind of a strong voice, always approves everything for the gondola. So, you know, while we are stepping back from this particular subcommittee, San Miguel County will still remain very much involved with the gondola going forward. And that same subject was discussed was it Monday or Tuesday at the gondola leadership committee meeting, and that was the consensus of how we would move ahead. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Quick question on that, because part of that discussion also did involve Telski.
Yes.
And was there did the Telski representatives get back and have an opinion one way or another on that?
So 2 things I did ask, so thank you for that reminder. We had not really heard or had a good read on when we met SMART on how Telski felt about this. So the SMART board asked David Averill to follow up with TSG on that, and he indicated that they did not have an issue with that.
Great.
Also, they did have a representative online at the gondola leadership committee meeting when this conversation occurred, and there were no comments from them. So they are aware, and they have not voiced any concerns about being removed from the G sub. And similar to San Miguel County, they will continue to be involved with the leadership council, not as voting members, but you know, present for all of the updates and the discussion about decisions and all that. So I feel good about that we kind of made sure that TSG wasn't going to be upset about it.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
for the question. Yeah. Also at the SMART board meeting, we approved contracts for a structural analysis of the gondola and the cabins. SMART, as we all know, is taking over the operation of the gondola in 2028. And in order to do appropriate capital planning, they need to understand sort of the physical condition of the system. And so that structural analysis will be taking place the rest of the summer and into the fall. So we have a sense of what capital improvements will be needed beginning in 2028. I can't recall if we discussed this at our last BOCC meeting, but I just wanted everybody who hasn't heard to know that David Averill, our executive director, I think that's his title, will be leaving SMART, which is super sad. But man, that guy has put in his time and done a fabulous job. So if he needs to move on, I'm certainly in support. We also had a gondola update at both the SMART meeting and at the leadership committee meeting. And kind of a big hurdle that we are kind of figuring out whether we can reach is, or achieve, is get past the Buy America, Build America requirement. Both of the potential vendors for the gondola are European companies, although they have operations in the US. And it turns out that only one of them can meet the 30% threshold for Buy America, Build America, which could potentially, well, which would leave us with just one option for a vendor. It's possible that we can request a waiver, but it's unclear whether that will happen. So that was discussed at the SMART meeting, and then there was sort of more extensive conversation at the Gondola Leadership Committee meeting about the process of getting federal funding for the gondola and all of the many hurdles that we need to get past, and how that adds not only time but also cost to the project. And so the leadership committee requested that staff lay out kind of a comparison of project costs and sort of risks, as well as timeline for pursuing the gondola rebuild with federal funding and without federal funding. And that will be discussed at an upcoming meeting. It's, you know, there's a possibility of a 50% match through this FTA SIG grant, but there are so many kind of hoops we have to jump through in order to qualify for that, that there's a consideration being given to whether it's frankly worth it. So that's kind of the whole SMART gondola update. I attended on July 24th, a CCI, Colorado Counties Inc. meeting, where we discussed 15 legislative proposals for potential support from CCI. And some of them are also being reviewed by CCAT, which is the Smaller Counties Association. So that was just kind of an initial conversation. I will mention that we learned at that meeting that there's an anticipated $300 million deficit in the state budget for 2027-28. So there will be more shopping taking place. On July 27th, I attended a meeting that was organized by the Blues and Brews and Bluegrass Festivals. They pulled together representatives from all of the various jurisdictions, the Tarry Tourism Board, Colorado Flights Alliance, to basically discuss the financial pressure that the festivals are under. They wanted us to understand kind of how structural changes in their industry, as well as costs associated with having a festival here in Telluride, are putting a lot of pressure on them to the point where they are barely able to break even. And there were no real specific asks made, but it was a really helpful conversation in the sense that, as you know, I've been involved with conversations about economic resiliency in the community of the east end of the county and the region. So to get their particular take on it. Their concern is that it's just so expensive for people to come to festivals in Telluride, and there's so many other options available for music festivals that they're seeing declining ticket sales, as well as just their own costs going up. There's a lot of competition for lodging from these weddings that we are now having so many of, and whereas, they used to be able to, I think they might find some leverage with the lodging community in terms of reducing lodging costs, for festivals if they weren't doing so well or selling out. Now that these weddings are creating so much demand on lodging, the lodgers are not likely, to be able to do that. So their concern is not only their own viability of their businesses, but also the idea of us sort of losing the cultural diversity and richness that the festivals bring to the community. And their concern is that we will end up being the wedding capital of the Rockies rather than the festival capital of the Rockies. So that was a very interesting conversation. And I shared with them information about the Chamber of Commerce that we are talking about forming with the local businesses or helping the local businesses form, and they were interested in being part of that. I think the next steps for the festivals is to have a meeting with maybe more festivals and maybe a smaller group of government officials to see if we can come up with some more, not just information sharing, but some action items. Okay, last week, I was in Steamboat for the CCAT Colorado, what's it called? Counties and Commissioners Acting Together Summer Conference. That was on Thursday and Friday, and like CCI, we are in a, at the point in our sort of annual cycle where we're trying to figure out what our priorities are gonna be for the upcoming legislative session. And we did discuss some specific, bill proposals, but decided it was too early to kind of focus on that. So instead, we created or defined 3 kind of general priorities that we're gonna start exploring in the coming months. And that is housing. And you may recall when we filled out the CCAT survey, we asked, does that really an important role for CCAT? And Mike made the point, well, if they can advocate for smaller and more rural counties, that would be a good role. I guess I hadn't paid much attention last year or retained what I should have known, but CCAT has been very involved in housing policy and has been very effective. Partner recognized at the state level. And one of the big things they do advocate for is flexibility for smaller counties. So that the team, kind of the CCAT members, agreed that that should continue to be a priority for CCAT. The second one, we talked quite a bit about this last time, was revenue diversification. And there were 5 of the proposed measures that had the most traction. And all of these, except one, were on our short list: excise tax, vacancy tax, real estate transfer fee, not a tax, but a fee, short-term rental reclassification. And then the other one that was like the 5th on the list was that statewide revenue directed to counties, which I spoke up in the meeting saying, why would we want to tie our revenue to the state when the state is in such tough financial shape? And I think people kind of heard that. So that maybe will be the lesser of the priority, but at this point, they're kind of talking to legislators and trying to understand, where there might be traction, who'd be interested in sponsoring all that. So we're kind of still open. And then the last piece, the last priority is wildfire. And that includes kind of working towards supporting Pitkin County's initiative that we talked about for state level funding of wildfire technology. We were very interested in that one.
Just curious, is there discussion around the homeowners insurance pool and how there could be some potential legislation or sway
Yeah.
there, and how CCAT might have some influence in that sphere for wildfire resiliency, and how it's, so tied to the affordability or in eligibility to retain or attain homeowners insurance.
Right. Okay, now you're
I don't mean to derail you.
my brain. No,
But-
it's really good. It's something we do talk about almost every time we're together, and I'm just trying to remember. I mean, I think that all of the wildfire initiatives that, or, legislation, policies, whatever that we're discussing are kind of have two underlying reasons for us to care. One is just, preventing and managing wildfire, right? And the other one is lowering cost of insurance. It's just been found to be so hard to move that needle.
Right.
But there is discussion, and I can't remember the detail about, so there's last legislative session, there was something that created an enterprise zone that would, I think it was for hail hardening. And it was discussed whether we could add other kind of mitigation efforts to that enterprise zone in an effort to, again, reduce homeowners insurance. So it's something that's very much underlying driver for our interest in wildfire issues. But I can't remember if there was anything specific to that in this legislative session. I'll listen more carefully for that.
Okay, and sorry to put you on
Yeah,
the
no,
spot
it's
there
fine.
too,
No, no.
but it was a thought I
Yeah.
had after the fact of
Yeah.
our discussion last time was
Yeah.
like, it's so two-pronged, like you're saying, there's the risks and reducing risks
Yeah.
and, you know, all the new wildfire resiliency codes that we're adopting, which reduce that risk, but also certainly are going to, I would say in general, make the cost of building higher
Yeah.
and lower affordability. And if that comes with some potential reduction in homeowner insurance costs, that could balance out these efforts. But it's a tough task, as we know, with the insurance industry and that the lobby power and everything that we're up against there. So
It is. I do
Yeah.
know that the Colorado, what's he called? Insurance. There's an officer,
yeah, the
Commissioner.
commissioner.
Insurance commissioner.
Insurance commissioner,
Yeah.
yeah. That's all he's working on.
Yeah.
Is trying to reduce our homeowners insurance. And he did speak to us last year at CCAT. He didn't speak this year, but maybe he will in the fall. Yeah, thank you. And okay, let's see. We spent a lot of time talking, or not a lot of time, but some time talking about all the ballot measures that are up. I don't know if you saw that last email that listed so many ballot measures, some that have already been approved, you know, all the signatures verified, some that are still collecting signatures. Oh, I think Monday was the deadline, but you know, CCAT is trying to decide how many of these we want to support or oppose in terms of what really matters to us and also what we have a bandwidth for. The one, as you may recall, that CCAT has been very involved in is the graduated income tax one that would fund schools, childcare and healthcare. And I was in Denver on Monday and got a note from the Bell Policy Center, which had been coordinating the collection of those signatures. And they had 157,000, which was more than the threshold. And they invited anybody who got the email to come and deliver the petition or the signatures to the Secretary of State's office. So I went on Monday afternoon and walked with this crowd of people down the street from the, I can't remember where we started, 3:30 something, anyway, and walked into the Secretary of State's office with these dozens of boxes of petitions. It was thrilling. It was really, really fun.
How rad, eh?
It's really cool, yeah. This is the kind of thing we miss being in the Western Slope.
Yeah.
It was great. It's just a total coincidence and it was the thrill of a lifetime, really. It just, you felt like you were really part of democracy. Anyway, the other big ballot initiative that CCAT is engaged with, concerned about is transportation funding adjustments initiative 175. Have I mentioned this to you before, Kalina? It's a big deal. It has been proposed by road contractors, and as I understand it, it would carve out $700 million annually from the state fund and dedicate it only to road improvements and not like multimodal or bike lanes, but just like pavement kind of projects. And it would really impact other uses of those funds in the state. So last legislative session, there was a bill proposed that would try to kind of work with that, House Bill 2630, which CCAT supported, and there's just a ton of conversation ongoing about what happens if 175 passes, and then also if 175 passes, that's when 1430 kicks in, and it's not perfect, and so either way, it's going to be a tough situation. Trying to remember, the Speaker Pro Tem of the State House, Bosnecker, came and spoke to us, and he was the lead on that bill. And he said that if 175, I can't remember, anyway, that they'll probably refine 1430 this coming session, and that will help because they've just learned since then. But this is a big deal at the state level. And then the last thing that happened at CCAT was we had a quick chat with Attorney General Phil Weiser. And of note, the nominee for lieutenant governor is Leslie Dahlkemper. She's a current commissioner of Jeffco, Jefferson County, and she's part of CCAT. And so she, we spent the time with her, and she is the bomb The two of them are like the dream team. I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't talk about politics in commissioners meeting, but I am so impressed with them. And what AG Weiser as well as Leslie wanted to get across to us is Weiser's interest in repairing the relationship between the state government, particularly the governor's office and counties. We all have felt that the current governor has been very top down, where Colorado historically is governed bottom up. And Phil understands that and really wants to work collaboratively with counties. And that is, I think, in choosing a county commissioner as his lieutenant governor is a very strong indication that he will follow through on that. So it was really fun hearing from him. And coincidentally, kind of, he was actually made the phone call or the Zoom call from outside our library because he was going into a public meeting that he had here. So that was kind of funny. But anyway, that's what happened at CCAP.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I was present at that Phil Weiser meet and greet here in Telluride, and there was a pretty full room of,
How many people were there, would you say?
I'd say there were probably 20 people there. It was in the Telluride room at the library, and it was pretty much standing room only. And yeah, he was very engaging, and answered many questions as well as gave his stump speech. But I feel that I walked away feeling quite confident that he has the Western Slope on his radar and understands the importance of relationship building at the county and local government level. And not to get too deep into politics, but just from my interactions with him at that meeting and seeing the way he was engaging with all of our local officials and past serving local officials, and that there was a room full of movers and shakers. And he seemed very tuned in to issues that were of concern to our residents and issues and policies that we're considering at the local government level.
That's good.
Yes, yeah.
And you mentioned that
Yeah.
you asked him about how he might work towards Tabor reform. Do you have
Yes,
that?
and what his answer was kind of twofold. He's not really interested in tackling or touching rescission of Tabor, but introducing the concept of legislation that would allow for real estate transfer tax, as well as some kind of a vacancy tax.
Really?
Yes. County Commissioner candidate Dylan Brooks was in the room and asked questions more in depth around vacancy tax and how that could be really beneficial in San Miguel County. And he was in agreement, but he has some ideas around how that could work, and how it could also address omitting the so for those whose primary residence is in a municipality or a county, they would be exempt from that kind of a tax. And so it would
From the real estate transfer tax.
from the vacancy
Vacancy
tax.
tax, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And anyone who is their residence isn't, their primary residence is not in a municipality or county, they would then be subject to this tax. And so he does seem open to the idea and sounds like he might actually take action if he's governor.
Wow.
Yeah.
And same for the real estate transfer
Mhm.
tax.
Same for the real estate transfer tax. Yes. And he was well aware that there is a real estate transfer tax in Telluride. And because it's a home rule municipality and they were able to adopt that, but not in San Miguel County.
And also one in Mountain Village, it goes to TMBOA, so it might be a fee, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was his
good.
answer to Tabor, kind
Yeah.
of like introducing those two taxes. And of course, that would need to be through legislative action, and then it would be, as I understood it, what he's envisioning is that each individual county or municipality could then bring that to voters, whether they would like to have that, adopt that kind of a tax.
That's my understanding of the proposals to date also, which I think is good. And when we talked a bit about Tabor reform at CCAT, and one thing that everybody seemed to agree on is that what voters in Colorado like best about Tabor is that voters approve taxes.
Yep.
I feel like that's like foundational now in our state. And so I agree that the vacancy tax or real estate transfer tax review would have to be permissive and require a vote of the.
Yeah, voter approved
Yeah.
at the state level
Mhm.
as an initially proposed legislation, and then, as I understand it, but maybe I could have misunderstood the way it was a very quick answer on all of this.
Yeah.
But then certainly voter approved at the county
Yeah.
or municipal level.
Before it's instituted.
Yeah, yeah.
That makes so much sense. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, future looks bright. On the 22nd, I attended a San Miguel Watershed Coalition meeting. And one point of interest in that meeting was we discussed ways to leverage and expedite upcoming riparian and river restoration projects. Because there's, big challenges in the grant environment, as well as some private land owner hurdles to get some of these projects through to the finish line. So we just had some creative discussion around how to move these projects along despite those hurdles. And there are some really exciting projects in the pipeline that would really help with water conservation, habitat enhancements, and forest health, also playing into wildfire resiliency. So yeah, it's been useful sitting on that board and hearing about these projects and weighing in on how, the county might be able to move them along and support, participate, all the above. Yeah. Thanks for covering that smart board meeting. It was,
Thanks for being there.
yeah, absolutely. Being an alternate, I'm not as tuned in always on SMART, and I always learn something when I attend those meetings. It's great. On the 27th, I took part in a discussion with Chris Hazen and Star Jameson, as well as Chris's assistant Tessa, about the payment for ecological services and how that program has worked to date and what the needs are to sustain these services moving forward for the county. Most notably, Chris feels that it would be really useful to find more funding to support outreach to landowners, because they're pretty much at capacity just administering the program right now. And so he feels that like outreach has kind of fallen by the wayside. And I have heard from some landowners, especially with my recent engagement around the drought and this workshop I'm helping put on, that people have reached out and not actually gotten response. So it made sense that he was expressing that they're kind of at capacity that way. So, Star suggested, she's always so good at understanding what potential grant funding is out there, and she's going to pursue some grants that might be able to support that program. So that was great. And Chris and Tessa will be presenting the PEZ program at this upcoming Drought on the West End workshop on the 13th of August in Norwood.
Fantastic.
Yes. I kind of on that topic, I met with Jacob Gordon, who is the newly hired San Miguel Basin CSU Extension Program Coordinator. And I've just wanted to sit down and talk with him about his new role and what he's focusing on. And he is kind of the liaison between local producers and the extension office. He's also really focusing on natural resources and range management, as well as producer education. So he's going to be giving a presentation at this workshop as well. And he's off to a great start. He's been engaging with a lot of residents and honing in on concerns and has some really great ideas to bring to the community. And he's really passionate about engaging with the youth. And he grew up in Norwood and is now, trying his hand at being a rancher. And so I think he's a really great addition to CSU Extension as somebody who walks the walk and talks the talk and has good outreach to the community.
That's fantastic. Is the August 13th meeting gonna be recorded? Or available?
If
remotely?
we are currently exploring that.
Yeah.
And I want to say yes, but it's a pretty long meeting.
Mhm.
It's from like 11 to 3, but I think during the speaker session,
Yes.
we will have that as a Zoom option and recorded,
Right.
because there's a couple of speakers who aren't sure they're doing wildfire rehab work across the state, 2 different people. And so they aren't sure if they'll be able to be there in person, but they might need to be Zooming in to give their presentations. So that will certainly be available.
That's great.
But that information hasn't been solidified, so that needs to be shared
Sure.
with the public here soon, once we figure it out. Yeah.
That would be amazing if it could be, especially recorded,
Yeah.
because like I think about the wildfire preparation sessions that the foundation organized, and people were like, oh, we should have one of these. I'm like, we already did, but
Right.
not everybody can make it at that particular time, and it's gonna be so much important information shared.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And I actually we've been kind of winging it with this because it was a
Yeah.
pretty last minute
Yeah,
event that we're putting on. But perhaps even I was going to reach out to Sean and see if Nate in the county IT department could help me to
Mhm.
implement this and maybe
Mhm.
even utilize the YouTube channel to
Sure.
record and share. So I'm going to see if we can do that.
You're getting nods.
Yeah, great. This was a thought I had yesterday, like last night, actually. It was like, oh, okay, that would be good. Cause yeah, being able to review this later. And for those that can attend, it's going to be a good resource. It's a really exciting group that's come together, speakers, and really what this event is evolving into is what I see as like a launching point to bring the ag community together, not only in San Miguel, but also West Montrose County. And I think that there's been a desire for this for a really long time. And working with CSU Extension Office, we were talking about like, okay, how can we do this? Would it be a monthly coffee meeting, like the first Monday of every month or every other month? What would actually be realistic and viable? Just to get people together to talk about what's working, what's not, what can CSU Extension do to really support the community? What can the counties do to support? And, what just have an ongoing conversation around how to support our ag community because it's challenging times.
Yep.
And especially, not just this drought and the challenges people are facing, but succession planning and,
Sure.
cost of living and all these factors that come into play. And I would say that particular sector of the county, they're like head down, hardworking. It's not as easy, even as a commissioner living on Rice Mesa. Like I find I have a hard time connecting with that sector of the community as much. So I think it would be a great opportunity to have more frequent meetings, whether they be informal or if we form some sort of a working group. That's been kind of like ongoing. We're feeling out what will work for people.
So we'll discuss that more on the 13th.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
smart.
Yeah, and this event is coming together. There will be these formal, a speaker, all these speakers coming together, speaking to these specific topics that have been identified as really important. But then we want to leave enough space and time to have a more informal kind of roundtable discussion with everybody in the room as to these very questions posing. So yeah, hoping that it will be well attended, and big thanks to Megan because she's been helping me with getting the word out and designing the flyer
Yes,
and
that's really
distributing
nice.
press release. And thank you, Megan, for your help. Yeah. I also, just a little thing I did over the weekend, I participated on a panel discussion the documentary film, The Casual Enormity of Adam Palmer. And Adam was a really inspiring man. He lived in Eagle. He was on Town of Eagle Board of Trustees, as well as the Holy Cross Energy Cooperative. And he was very instrumental in pushing renewable energy, and really when he got on board with Holy Cross Electric Cooperative, that electric co-op was at like 25% renewable. That that cooperative is now almost at 100% renewable energy generation and transmission, and is becoming like an example throughout the state and the West. And he was a real mover and shaker. He not only was really instrumental in pushing renewable energy policy and really creative solutions for renewable energy, but he was just a doer. He helped implement a community housing development in Eagle. He formed a Trails Alliance where they built over 150 miles of single track around Eagle. He helped implement and see through a whitewater park in the town of Eagle. He was just an amazing human being. And what I really took away from the film was just like how fun he was and how he really had this infectious energy that could just change the vibe in a room, especially in a really contentious meeting. He just had this magic way about him of being relatable and being able to bring people together over hard issues and find consensus, which I just have so much respect for, because as we know, it's not always easy. But he actually passed away backcountry skiing here in the San Juans. Yeah, a few years ago up at the Opus Hut. Yeah. Yeah. So his story is very powerful. And
Who's the filmmaker?
the
Someone
film, so the filmmaker, well, this gentleman, Jeff, who was he wasn't the actual, well, he did help produce the film. Jeffrey Grimer, who is now, he was Adam's successor on the Eagle County Board of Trustees after Adam passed away, and he has co-founded the Adam Palmer Sustainability Fund, which is helped produce this film and is taking it on tour. And so he also spoke on the panel, and he is really wanting to carry on and with Adam's legacy and move forward a lot of the things that he was continuing to work on. And just a really good guy. So yeah, it was unfortunately not as well attended as I wish it were, because there was a lot going on. The rodeo, the one-to-one mentoring chef event. But at any rate, if any of you have a chance to see the film, it's really inspiring. And on that note, that's all I have to report on. I did go to the rodeo on Friday night, and that was fun too.
Were you there when they parachuted or the flag in?
Yeah.
That was pretty neat.
Yeah.
I just saw it online.
Yeah, it was, they do a great job every year, but I feel like every year there's just kind of like they up their game.
Yeah, that's great.
It was great fun and really nice weekend for it. Yeah.
Good.
Commissioners, at the risk of delaying lunch, can I suggest, since 12A has been removed and I have no updates for attorneys matters, if we could I would suggest if we quickly do 12B, because I think it's going to be relatively quick, so we don't have to come back just for that item.
I appreciate that suggestion, and let's do that. Carmen, have you received that letter that was
To confirm the withdrawal.
For the withdrawal for the,
to confirm the withdrawal for item?
no, she called and I talked to her this morning, but she was driving when I spoke with her, and she did say she would send an email to solidify officially.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, let's,
We need Sarah for, oh no, we have Nancy, right? Sorry.
yeah, so item 12B consideration of approving the 2026 County Board of Equalization Officers recommendations.
Yes, so
Nancy?
hello, commissioners. As you know, we hire an independent hearing officer to hear the property tax protests at the CBOE level. And in your packet, you have the hearing officer's recommendations. And so as you sitting as the Board of Equalization, we were asking you to approve or deny the recommendations, and if you had any questions.
I do not have any questions. They were all quite straightforward to me, and founded.
Yeah, and I appreciate that she wasn't just like rubber stamping these, some she upheld the assessor's values, some she adjusted, it sounds like she was quite thoughtful. So, yeah. I do not have any questions either. Would there be at this moment any, are they called petitioners? Yeah, petitioners that would protest at this point, or is that done?
No, once you vote on this, then they have an option to do 3 other
Steps.
additional.
Okay,
It's another level, but they have 3 different options. They can go to the BAA, court, or binding arbitration.
that's
And
right.
so they could choose one of those 3 options within 30 days from your decision today.
Okay, but I'm just wondering if we would expect anyone to show up here to protest, but it doesn't look like anybody's here. Okay, I'm ready to make a motion.
Great, go ahead.
I move that we approve the 2026 County Board of Equalization Officers recommendations.
I second that. How do you vote?
Aye.
I as well. Motion passes unanimously.
Great, thanks.
Nancy, I'm sure that was a lot more work than it appeared right here.
Well,
No
you know, it is an intervening year, so it wasn't as hardcore as it is on the reappraisal years. And of course, the assessor's office was very well prepared and wonderful to work with as far as getting everything ready, because it's such a crazy turnaround. So
Yeah,
thanks to them also.
and more I heard who attended those hearings, thank you.
Just a
for-
few of them. but,
Thank
you know.
you. Yeah. Alrighty,
Great. Well, without further ado, we don't have any more agenda items. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
All right, I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
I as well. Thank you, and everybody have a good afternoon.
Take care, Mike. Thanks for being with us.